All right. What's good, y'all? Soul here, and welcome back to my story mode. On today's edition of Soul Ramble Mode, we'll be going over the pros and cons of the potential of a remake for Sonic 06. Now, the only reason that I bring this up is because a couple of days ago during an interview, a couple of people interviewed a couple of directors from Sonic Team, namely one of them being Nakamura, one of the big boys up at Sonic Team and things like that. And one of the things that was mentioned was that he would love to do a remake or remaster or remake of Sonic the Hedgehog, or namely Sonic 06. And this is something that sparked a very massive conversation within the fan base. It just, everybody was talking about the ramifications of what would come from a Sonic 06 remake, whether it be good, bad. Everybody was just arguing on both sides of everything, and it was essentially something of a war for a couple of days, and not a lot of people truly understood what was going on. And I for a little bit was one of them, because I didn't really look into it that much, because I was always thinking about the possibility of a Sonic 06 remake, and the potential that he himself, Nakamura, one of the people that was one of the directors of 06, I believe, wants to give that another shot, like another chance, is truly inspiring and truly, an exciting idea for me. Because, again, I've talked time and time again, whether it be on this channel or to my friends or whatever, about the potential of an 06 remake. I am one of the many that thinks that 06 getting a remake would be absolutely phenomenal for the series in more ways than one. However, not a lot of people feel the exact same way as me. They think that 06 should be completely left in the dust, should be completely forgotten, and should not be touched or dug up ever again, because it was just that bad of a game. And to an extent, I do understand that viewpoint. However, me personally, when I see a chance to correct something that had a lot of potential to begin with, when I feel the need to fix something that, could be so much more in the proper light and, done with, more proper knowledge and things like that, I would definitely like to take that chance. However, again, not everybody feels the same way as me, which is why I've made this little list here to compile like my pros and cons, or at least how I see what pros and cons would look like for an 06 remake. One really quick thing, though, before we hop into this, is that one of the many conversations that I saw people having was apparently that they would not be a big fan of the boost formula in that specific game. Like, they would prefer to have the level design of Sonic 06, which kind of speaks volumes in a way, which is really interesting that they would prefer to have a, kind of more leaning towards the original style of 06, or like a more adventure style, as opposed to the boost formula that we've adopted in the most recent games. But that's also kind of strange, because everybody's enjoyed the boost formula in the last couple of games. People liked it in Frontiers, people liked it in Sonic Gens Remastered, people liked it in Shadow Gens. So I don't really understand completely what the problem is here if everybody likes the boost formula, and we have seen it proven to work in Sonic 06 levels. For example, we have seen Crisis City with this boost formula, we have seen Kingdom Valley with the boost formula, and it works perfectly fine, right? Now, I could go either which way. I'm more so obsessed with the idea of getting that story rewritten so that we actually have another genuine story on our hands from Sonic, because I'll get to it in a minute. But long story short, I could go either way with the formula, without the formula. I don't really care. It works either way for me. I just want to see some cool, fresh gameplay, however that has to happen. And I don't know. I think it's not impossible to do something like that, and I don't think it would be ridiculous to use the boost formula if they wanted to use the boost formula, because, hey, when you find a winning formula, you're going to use that sucker, man. I can't really blame them for it. Okay, sorry, with all that being said and out of the way, we can finally talk about some of the pros and cons that would come from the potential of a remake for Sonic 06. So why don't we go ahead and start with the pros. The first of them being, it's a chance to fix a very broken story with a lot of potential. Now, the thing about Sonic 06's story is that it was by and far, I still think to this day even, the most ambitious story they ever tried to tell. It was such a massive story that involved these hedgehogs that we've known for so long, and then this new one, Silver, that we didn't know at all, but he was so heavily ingrained into that story that we couldn't help but become kind of interested in that kind of a thing, Like, it was a brand new third hedgehog, somebody to finally rival Sonic and Shadow, something we never thought would be done, but they really did try to attempt that, right? And I really think that the story had so much potential all of the history surrounding just the town alone was actually really interesting. The concept of Elise and her father, his situation being, unlocking the flames of disaster, but realizing, why they're called the flames of disaster, and having to seal that within his daughter and making it so that she is never allowed to cry, because that strength, that just a pure amount of emotion would release this unpredictable god onto the world, this just unstoppable force that, at the time he didn't know if anybody would be able to stop. Obviously, our hedgehogs would be able to do it because they're them, but that's why I always say it plays out a lot to me like a shonen story. I've said my piece about this in my recent video, talking about, all of the things that I would love to see redone or just fixed up in a Sonic 06 remake. But essentially, just to recap that, I've always felt that 06 kind of played itself out as if it were something of a shonen style movie, right? You think of, like, for example, any Naruto movie where they, even the first Naruto movie, the Journey to the Land of Snow, or whatever the name of that movie was. I still love that movie to death, even though I haven't seen it in near a decade and forgot its name. It was a fun little story about, them journeying to this other village and them kind of getting involved in their issues, and then, them being the unsung heroes, like the unexpected heroes that actually come out to save the day. I love stories like that. It's one of the reasons why I love Dragon Ball so much in general, which is, ironically, what Sonic was definitely, takes a lot of hefty inspiration from, which is why I think I liked the potential and, the ideas presented in 06's story, even if they weren't fleshed out very well, because it played out like a lot of the stories that I've come to love over the years. This kind of unsuspecting, like, kid or hero or whatever that, they don't really understand or, know the true limits or potential of, that, has experienced so much life and wants to, bring that kind of hope to the entirety of the world, and, putting their best foot forward to really show that, there's a lot to life and that it's worth living and stuff like that. And I feel like 06 was really trying to aim for a very hefty story within those lines. It just was not fleshed out properly enough in terms of characterization for, like, Elise and things like that, for Silver, and it's just really unfortunate because they all had so much potential as characters. It was just executed wrong in so many different ways, and this is where I truly do believe a remake could help benefit this story, even as a time travel story, something that is very, very hit or miss with me. You either have a very good time travel story that is absolutely elite, like Steins Gate type beat, or you have, for lack of a better example right now, Sonic 06, where the time travel was just a mess. There were no rules or anything like that, and it was just completely unorganized. And so, with that being said, I feel like it could really benefit from that story being remade and retold, because it is truly one of the most ambitious and just high-stakes stories that they've ever told in the Sonic franchise, and I think they could really heavily benefit from, people realizing, like, okay, this story always had potential, it just wasn't truly written out. It did make it past the first draft, and so that's where I am with that. I really do think that they could benefit from, fixing that story and turning it into something just so incredibly epic. So incredibly epic. Another pro here that I believe could be a massive benefit to the entirety of the franchise going forward after a remake like this would be a chance to truly fix and properly utilize Silver's character. Because when you really think about it, Silver was one of the primary forces of this story. He was one of the primary driving forces surrounding Sonic 06, right? Of course, it was kind of like still something of a balance between Sonic, Shadow, and Silver, where Shadow was the past, Sonic was the present, and Silver was the future. But in reality, it all came down to, Silver's actions and what his actions caused, with him going back into the past and, trying to kill Sonic, it not working out. So Mephiles, kind of caved and had to do it himself, which, why couldn't he? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was Silver's actions that led to a different outcome from his original timeline that made it so that he could set the pieces up so Mephiles could go in and do it himself. I don't know. There's, again, time travel stuff is so incredibly messy and that's why I need them to fix the story. But more importantly, Silver's character has been completely shafted and underutilized ever since 06, and I cannot stand for that, because I enjoy Silver as a character and as a concept. His power easily rivals, and in some cases surpasses, Sonic and Shadow in terms of just raw just power, right? His telekinesis is absolutely insane, and I feel like that is not something to be slept on, because if Silver were written properly throughout, like, over the course of time, he easily would have been, you know, more respected and one of the ones to lead. I mean, you know, I get Knuckles being the resistance leader in Sonic Forces or anything like that, but I feel like it would be even more appropriate for Silver to take the reins and stuff like that, because he would be, you know, the most powerful after Sonic and Shadow, who, you know, both at the time were kind of, you know, busy with they're wrapped up in their own situations. But regardless, it's one of those things where Silver absolutely has the potential to keep up with Sonic and Shadow, and that's not utilized enough within any of the stories that he's been present in, whether it be the Sonic Rivals games, which tried to retcon his story, because, I mean, technically they never met, so they had to redo it that way, but, you know, nobody really played or paid attention to the story of Rivals like that, so nobody's truly fully aware of, you know, who Silver is as a character. And then, of course, there's the Sonic Team racing situation where they just made him something of a joke, and then obviously in Forces he's just an absolute joke. The only time he was even remotely used decently was in Sonic Generations, ironically, where he was a boss fight, and that's it. That's the best we've seen of Silver since 06, and I think that is absolutely tragic, because he should be part of what, you know, Sonic's, you know, out of Sonic's friends, he should be part of the big three. 100% undeniable, no doubt. Silver is truly an awesome character that I feel could be properly utilized if written out properly, and I think this right here in 06 Remake would be an opportunity to truly put his character into the limelight, and I would love to see him get a second chance. Another undeniable pro is the opportunity to fix up and utilize Mephiles and Solaris as a proper antagonistic force. I mean, in reality, it is just Mephiles that's the primary antagonist, but then, you know, then there's Solaris, who is the almighty being, a god of time. You know, and the thing about Solaris is that it's not necessarily evil, but what it's trying to do puts everyone at risk, and so that's where, you know, it needs to be stopped. But I feel like, you know, this kind of plays into the story situation in which I feel like as an antagonistic force, if rewritten properly, they have the opportunity to be the coolest enemies in all of Sonic history, I think. Because I always did enjoy the concept of Mephiles, but Mephiles is... The problem with Mephiles, again, it comes from the story in which just the way time works is just ridiculous, because it has no rules and no limitations, especially for somebody like Mephiles, who, you know, he's part of the god of time. There's no reason as to why, you know, if he has this much consciousness and he's able to outthink his enemies and stuff like that this hard, that he wouldn't be able to handle things himself. So it's like, I don't know. It's super weird, and I've always liked the concept of him taking over Shadow, considering the fact that, you know, he got an idea of who Shadow was at a glance, and he was able to try and manipulate Shadow. He was easily able to manipulate Silver, but it didn't work as well in Shadow and things like that. I've always enjoyed, like, how Mephiles was, I guess, ideated. I don't know how else to word this. How he was attempted, I guess, is the best way to put this. But, again, it wasn't executed well. And I feel like Mephiles and Solaris could be phenomenal enemies to the Sonic franchise if utilized properly, especially because it's proof, right? Right in Shadow Generations, that fight was easily my favorite solely because the emotion behind it was so raw, right? His desperation to get what he needs, to get what he wants, was so clear and true. And Shadow had to, you know, put this man down, and it was so sad because Shadow doesn't even remember Mephiles, which, you know, makes sense because of what happened, but he doesn't even remember Mephiles. And so it's just such a raw, like, scene, a raw fight, because there's just so much emotion behind it, because we as the players, we know who Mephiles is, and we know his history, and it's just such a tough moment, especially because, again, it would be easier to take that seriously, or at least it would be even stronger of a boss fight in a moment if Mephiles was rewritten properly. So I feel like taking the opportunity to remake 06 would definitely help this a lot. Another pro that I think that we need to acknowledge here is the fact that with a remake like this one, it would be a great chance to actually reutilize humans for the first time since, I believe, Unleashed, right? Because I think that we have it on more than good authority to blame 06 for what happened to the humans in the entirety of the franchise, right? We have not seen a human since Unleashed. However, it was because of 06 that people just were not having it with Unleashed. They were just like, nope, the series is cooked. It doesn't matter what you try to do in Unleashed, even if Unleashed was one of the most raw games in the franchise and definitely easily one of the best. But that's a discussion for another day. Regardless, they were just not having it because of how the humans were in 06. And the humans in 06 were ugly. They were so eerily realistic that it was really unpleasant to look at a lot of the time, even in their animations and things like that. And then to top it off, you know, they just I don't even want to talk about this, but they would not stop with the Elise jokes, with what happened with Elise. And Elise was just not a well-written character at all. just not a well-written character, and I just can't help but feel that she is one of the primary reasons as to why we saw nothing of humans after Unleashed, because everybody looked at humans and they think back, oh god, Elise, I hope we don't get another hedgehog kisser. And it was just, it got so tiring. But regardless, I think we have a chance to actually utilize the humans, have them actually feel the ramifications of what's happening to the world when Solaris gets released, have, you know, I mean, obviously Eggman's going to be present. Eggman always has to be present, but actually writing out Elise's character to not be an idiot, to not be completely useless, especially for somebody that's not allowed to cry. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just so much fix-ups you could do to how the humans operate and how they look. It's mostly design-wise, but, you know, again, if you were to properly utilize I almost said Ulysses. What the hell? Who is that? Elise as a character and properly write her out, I think we could see a rise in human appreciation in the Sonic franchise. We've already seen it as potential with, you know, Maria, who's always been a very interesting character, but this time, more than ever, this year, we have seen more Maria than we've ever seen before, and she is a phenomenal character. She is a beautifully written character, and that's the kind of character writing we need to see with Elise, right? So I feel like we could definitely comfortably start to get humans back if they were to write Elise properly with an 06 remake, but also all of the humans actually having an active part within the story, them feeling the ramifications of what's happening throughout the entirety of the story, and them actually fitting the aesthetic of what the characters look like now. And if they look anything like Maria and Gerald Robotnik, I feel like we'll definitely be okay. It's just that everybody was just so jarringly realistic, and it was unpleasant, you know? Or, you know, again, all we got to do is follow the philosophy of what, it doesn't even have to be like what they look like in Shadow Gens. They could easily look like what they looked like in Unleashed, and I feel like people would be acceptful of that. I feel like that would work out perfectly fine. So that's definitely where I stand with that. Another pro is actually them being able to utilize this chance of a remake to put all of the things that we've seen in the most recent Sonic games to the test in this remake, right? If they were to build it from the ground up, we could absolutely see a situation in which they utilize all of the best things to come out of things like Sonic Frontiers and Shadow Generations in this remake, right? For example, you know, hub worlds or open zone areas where we're actually actively running around something like Soliana, and we're able to actually, you know, grind on, you know, the tops of buildings and rooftops and be able to move around this big open city properly and have proper parkour mechanics and have, like, you know, all of these different little zone challenges and things like that, or challenges within the city that would help unlock other places into the city, kind of like, you know, how when Shadow would get his abilities, his Doom powers, it would open up the world a little bit more after he would receive those powers. And so we could get a situation like that in which Sonic, Shadow, and Silver unlock their own respective abilities to open up the world for each of them individually and to make it a much bigger, you know, more open zone, more fun open world, right? Or, you know, not open world, but open zone. You get what I'm getting at, right? If that would play into, you know, how levels operated, like cyberspace levels, I don't think they would do that. I don't know, maybe. And even if they did, I'd be fine with it. But maybe that's just me, I don't know. But I could totally see a situation in which we actually do get to see, them test out the open world or open zone style that we've seen in Sonic Frontiers as well as Shadow Generations, right? And then not only that, we would actually be able to see more NPCs around. They would have more fitting dialogue, and it would be properly written out. It'd be a little more fun to, talk to the NPCs within Soliana, especially if, every time you came back from a mission or something like that, and they actually had more interesting things to say. Again, this would be a situation in which they would feel the effects and the ramifications of what's happening within the story and what's happening to Soliana after the Flames of Disaster are released and things like that. I could definitely see them properly utilizing NPCs. Maybe sometimes when you're running around, you would see other characters, right? Where's Vector? Where's Charmy? Where's Rouge and all this? Oh, no, not Rouge. I'm sorry. Where's, I don't know why Rouge was the one that came to mind first. But, where's a lot of other characters, a lot of other Sonic's other friends, things like that. Where's SBO? We can work in Cream and Vanilla in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they can all definitely have something of a presence in Soliana. Hell, we can make it an isekai or something. I don't know. But, I don't know. Regardless, there are definitely ways to utilize NPCs properly that would make the worlds interesting and things like that again. And I would love to see them take the opportunity to do that with Soliana. This might also give them the proper opportunity to give us access to real side quests, like not the BS town quests that we would never know we would need to do to progress the story in Sonic 06 originally, which were the absolute dumbest thing you would ever know. No, we could utilize proper side quests and actually get access to abilities and equipment through those side quests that if you go out of your way to do those, you are rewarded with them, and then you can use those in levels to make your play, you can, really fix up your play style with that, right? So I feel like they can absolutely utilize side quests properly within Soliana, and again, that would bring more use to NPCs, that would bring more use to a lot of different power-ups and upgrades and things like that, that would make the playtime it would just flesh out the playtime so much if they were to absolutely properly utilize side quests. Something that not even, Frontiers or, Frontiers kind of did, obviously, but not really Shadow Gens, but regardless, you get what I'm getting at. And then, of course, we could absolutely see some kind of combat situation going on. Maybe they'll utilize the combat mechanics and upgrade that and flesh that out. Maybe that'll be specifically for Frontiers 2, and then we may just keep that as its own thing. And then, I don't know. I really don't know. I would be down to see combat stuff, but I don't know how well that would bode with the masses. I don't really know what to think of that, honestly, now that I really think about it. But I don't know. I still think if they were to try it, I feel like it could be really, really fun. So I don't know, but there's a lot of different ways they could absolutely fix up the just general styles of gameplay, and utilize a lot of what we've seen in these recent years to implement into this style of remake. I could definitely see them utilizing a lot of these ideas and making something truly spectacular in terms of gameplay. Now, the last most major pro that I have written down on this list is simply the fact that they could transform. If they were to take the opportunity to do this, they could transform one of their biggest blunders in gaming history and turn it into something absolutely spectacular. Something that we would never think we would see from them ever, especially after just so many years of mediocrity. We're finally hitting the big time with so many bangers, with Sonic Frontiers, some would say Sonic Superstars, I don't know if I'm one of them yet, and then of course Shadow Generations and things like that. We have seen them lock the hell in terms of what they're attempting to do with this franchise, and I could absolutely see them, really flipping this franchise on its head and making it truly something potentially to put into competition with Nintendo's IPs, to actually, make him a respectable rival of Mario again, like he used to be in the 90s, And I feel like them taking that opportunity and really locking in and doing that would transform Sonic into something just truly ethereal. Like, it would be such a massive flip, right? And I originally counted this as its own pro, but I feel like this should be implemented here. As it's, as this part of the pro, because it kind of goes into the same idea here, and that is the idea that it could not possibly be any worse than anything that we've seen in the last decade, which is already an incredible start, right? If we were to get an 06 remake, that means that they're confident enough in themselves, in their team, to work on something like this. And that's because they have seen what they can do when they have the time, the budget, and the proper team, right? So with that in mind, there's no possible way, gameplay wise, story wise, that it could possibly be any worse than 06. I really truly don't think that's the case at all. I think that they've already got a major leg up by getting the attention of us this hard in just in saying, oh yeah, it would be cool to make 06 again, to really, you know, start that from the ground up and remake that. Just them saying that has our attention like, oh my gosh, like, you know, regardless of the war that it started, it has a lot of potential and you can't really ignore that. And, you know, that just goes to show, like, they know what they did wrong and they know what they're doing. They know how to fix Sonic, and they've been proving that time and time again, both with Frontiers, with Superstars, and with Shadow Generations. And so I have more than enough faith. Me and a lot of other Sonic fans now more than ever have so much like faith in them to, you know, if they were to go out of their way to make this 06 remake, not only would it be not be any worse than anything we've gotten in the last 10 years, it would probably surpass a majority of what we've known from this franchise in ways that we did not think possible, because they know the secrets now. And, you know, it's not much of a secret. It never has been. It's just proving that they care, and they absolutely do. We just saw it 3 weeks ago with Shadow Gens. And if they put in just even half the amount of heart that they put in the Shadow Gens into a Sonic 06 remake, we're in for a phenomenal time in terms of story, in terms of gameplay, in terms of graphical capabilities, in terms of characterization. They have the recipe. They just gotta lock in and cook, man. That's all it takes. And I really do think that a lot of these pros could be just so beneficial for Sonic as a whole in the grand scheme of things. That's where I'm at with that. But now we have to sit up and flip the coin over and take a look at the other side and start talking about the cons, the ramifications of a Sonic 06 remake. The first and most obvious con that we would have to take a look at here is simply the fact that it would absolutely be their riskiest project, right? Because depending on how much money, time, effort, and teamwork they put into this one, it would have to be pretty much everything they've got. If it's gonna be a remake of 06, the biggest blunder in one of the biggest blunders in gaming history, they need to go all in. And that's the thing. They are not allowed to half-ass that. They are not allowed to have half the team like casually working on a remake, whatever. No, they have to go all in. All hands on deck for years at a time. Like, everybody and their mamas would have to be just consistently overseeing this project. Every primary director that they've had, you know, everybody overseeing the writing, the gameplay aspects, everything would have to be overseen every single day, right? It is the riskiest possible project, because if they don't do this one right, if they were to start remaking this and, you know, officially confirm that this remake's in development, people would be looking at that with the heaviest eyes, man. They would be just, oh my god, the pressure would be so on. It is hella risky, because it would be such a big and expensive investment and things like that. Obviously, I think that it's too soon to start a project like this. I think, you know, they're still working on gaining their feet again right now, which they've done a good job with these last like 2 or so years. And, you know, once they've really truly gotten that, that's when they would probably start working on it, probably after Frontiers 2. But it would have to be all hands on deck for a project like that. And they cannot falter in any way, shape, or form, because that is a massive project that cannot be half-assed in any way, shape, or form. So it's super risky, super duper risky. And you know what? This kind of plays into it too. I'm just going to make these two like one con. And that's essentially the fact that this would be more heavily criticized than any game from Sonic ever, right? Because after 06, no game was given a chance for so long that it was embarrassing to even acknowledge the possibility of being a Sonic fan. That's how dangerous it was out there in those streets, man. It was not good to be a Sonic fan back in the day after 06, after just anything, especially during the 2010s with Boom and Forces and everything like that. We're not going into that history, but the thing about it is that 06 was the start '06 was where it all started to go downhill for the public eye of Sonic. Which is why I truly believe that every journalist, every critic, every Sonic fan, every even non-Sonic fan that, you know, looked from the outside in at Sonic 06 during that time is going to look at this project, if it were to get started, with squinted eyes, man. They're you know, they're cautious about it. Like Sonic fans, we would be cautiously optimistic. Others would be just straight up cautious. Like, not even that. They'd probably laugh it off the stage as soon as they try and get the chance, unless it looks freaking grand from the get-go, from that first trailer. That first trailer has to be just absolute godlike levels of cinematic to not even let them get the chance to shut this game down before it even gets the chance to get out to the public. And that's, you know, again, we're in a very different place with gaming in general from 2006, 2007. So I feel like it's not going to be maybe not as harsh as I'm thinking, but it's definitely going to be a lot harsher than before, especially because people have seen that Sonic Team has really gotten their act together, and they've gotten, you know, bigger and better opportunities to make these awesome games these last couple of years. So, you know, they're really looking like, okay, well, you guys have got your foot in the door a little bit more. So if you guys are going to remake this mess, y'all got one shot. And that's a lot of pressure, man. That's a lot of pressure. So as I stated earlier, it would have to be everybody and their mama's on deck to never waver in terms of a project like that, and it's really scary to think about, and I feel like that pressure might affect development in some way, shape, or form, depending on who says what and how it reaches their ears. So I don't know, I just think that that's a really scary thought to have. My second con is the fact that because this would obviously have to be a from the scratch remake, because everything that's present in the OG it's okay. You know, a lot of the music is perfectly fine. I think they could easily just pour over the music. I think a lot of us would be perfectly okay with that, because the music in 06 is easily the best thing about 06. Don't even fight me on it. You can argue till the cows come home, bro. The music in Sonic 06 is some of the best in the entire franchise. I don't care. However, everything else has to be remade from the ground up, which means that this would definitely be a massive project that would take quite some time. We're talking, if they're working on Sonic Frontiers 2 right now, we're not going to see that bad boy for at least another 7-8 years maybe. And, you know, who knows what gaming in the world is going to look like at that point. And so it's really scary to think about. But regardless, it would just be such a long wait for a project like that, something that a lot of people, me in particular, would absolutely be anticipating. But I feel like, you know, I would just have to hope that the wait would be worth it. I would be very scared. I feel like I would be very scared for a majority of that time. But, you know, depending on how they advertise it, if they do it properly, we'll have a lot to look forward to. And I think that would be super duper swell in concept, of course, because, again, all of this here is simply a conversation. Because all he said was, I'd love to remake 06. He didn't say it was confirmed. Nobody said anything about that. But it's a fun conversation to have, because there's a lot of concepts and ideas from 06 that I, for years, have been preaching about, because, you know, at the time it didn't get a fair shake. Obviously, the game was promised to be revolutionary. It definitely wasn't. But the criticisms that it got were way more nasty and harsh than a lot of other games at the time, and it became the laughing stock that it became for way too long. And my heart can't take a round 2 of that. I really, really, really can't. Like, it's such a scary thought. But at the same time, it's also very intriguing. It's also very interesting, and it's even slightly exciting to think a Sonic 06 remake in the style of Sonic games that we have in the more recent years could be something just so extraordinary and so revolutionary that, you know, it brings the series to new heights never before seen. And I think that's why it's so scary. It's either the biggest hit or it's the fattest miss, and there is really no in between with a project like that. There's no, oh, this is okay. You know, this is you know everything that you did wrong. You have to get it right this time. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that's why it's so just nerve-wracking to think about the potential of a 06 remake. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Maybe they won't even do that. Maybe we'll just see some solid Sonic games from now on and not even look back at 06 because we don't really have to. But if given the chance, if they decide, if their higher ups are like, all right, we're giving you just a massive, insane budget from these last couple of games to just go ahead and make a remake as well. What are you guys trying to do? And then, you know, Izuka's looking, you know what I'm saying? And what's his name is looking too? And they're like, hey, what if, bro? You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. It's just a very interesting thought I had that everybody's been having as far as a conversation in the last week on Twitter and everything like that I just wanted to participate in sooner rather than later because I love talking about this. I love talking about all of the potential concepts that I would just enjoy seeing out of an 06 remake or just, you know, concepts from 06 that could work well in other games that we haven't seen in way too long. So, that's where I stand with that. Overall, you know, 06, not a good game, but it had a lot of potential and it's still near and dear to my heart because of what it attempted to do and because of how ambitious it was. And it's why I'm able to appreciate something like Sonic 06, Sonic Unleashed, Sonic, or Shadow Generations, excuse me, because I know where this all came from. And, you know, it was so refreshing to see them finally, you know, let these characters be awesome again. Let them be in a serious setting again because they tried so long. They tried for a very long time to get away from all of that with Sonic Colors and stuff like that. And I know Sonic Colors was like a smash hit, but like I never cared for that story. And because of that, you know, the gameplay was just very whatever to me. And even the gameplay, all the 2D, it was just not fun to me. I just don't care for Colors at all. And, you know, that's unfortunate because it's not necessarily a bad game. It's just not the Sonic that I was looking for, not the one that I grew up with. 06 is. And I feel like Frontiers really showcased the potential of having a serious, you know, Sonic game back like that and the potential of a remake if they were to do so. But maybe that's just me. So that just about does it for this one. This one's a little long-winded and it's precisely why I turned this one into a Soul Ramble mode because there was no way in hell that if I turned this into a standard side quest video that it would be edited in a reasonable amount of time whatsoever. So yeah, enjoy this one. Hopefully you did because this was fun to record. Actually, I can't wait to edit this. It's one of the things that I wanted to, as soon as I saw that conversation happening, I'm like, I want to talk about this right now. This is so exciting because it's just so exciting to idealize and just not idealize, excuse me, that's not the word I was looking for. Oh my god, it's so fun to theorize and just imagine the possibilities of what could be for an 06 remake because, you know, with, you know, Chaos 06's Project 06, we've seen what the game could look like and them taking the opportunity to fix up that story, fix up characterization and writing, and, you know, even to just general overall gameplay could be super duper revolutionary for the series. And I feel like it would be one of those risks worth taking if they were to do it. So, but I don't know. I'm not gonna hold my breath right now. I'm just waiting on Frontiers 2. I'm not even gonna think about it until we even at least get Frontiers 2 after this, but we'll see what happens. But regardless, pass the mic over to you guys because I want to hear your guys' ideas and thoughts on this whole conversation. Do you guys think that an 06 remake could be super beneficial? Do you think that they could get something truly awesome out of it if they were to do that? And we would have one of the biggest and most badass Sonic games of all time on our hands if they were to go out of their way to risk that? Or do you think that it's not worth the risk? It's too much at stake and, you know, we've already come too far with the Sonic series to take that step back and it's not even worth it. We should just look into the future. Tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below because you know for a fact that I'm always going to be down there with you guys. But with that, yes sir, it does appear to be skedaddle o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and do just that. I would like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I'm gone. So thanks again. Hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor of taking good ass care and I'll see you all next time.